The massive chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as the final votes appeared on the holographic display. 27 species had voted in favor, only 3 against. The motion passed. "It is decided," announced Elder Tark, his 4 arms raised in the traditional gesture of finality. Species 7294, designation human, is hereby classified as dangerous and emerging. Murmurs spread through the chamber as representatives of 300 star systems processed the implications. Humans were now officially marked for containment, the polite council term for systematic limitation of expansion, influence, and, in extreme cases, existence. "The humans have achieved quantum folding principles," continued Tark, his voice carrying through the vast hall. "Their development curve exceeds all projections. At current rates, they will achieve practical faster-than-light travel within 5 planetary cycles." The Mrit ambassador chittered nervously. "Impossible. Our own species required 2,000 cycles from basic spaceflight to FTL capability." "Nonetheless, it is true," Tark responded. "The evidence has been verified." Deep beneath the council chambers, in a restricted section that officially didn't exist, Han Bin watched the proceedings on a small screen. As chief handler for special operations, he rarely attended the public sessions. His work required discretion. "They've made their decision," came a voice behind him. Director Jeho entered the dim room, carrying a tablet displaying the same council feed. Han Bin nodded. "Will they authorize Containment Protocol 7? "They already have," Jeho said, his face unreadable. "This is merely the public announcement. The true vote happened 3 cycles ago." Han Bin felt a chill. Protocol 7 was reserved for the most dangerous emerging species, those with both technological aptitude and unpredictable behavior patterns. It had only been used twice in the Council's 12,000 cycle history. "Then we are to activate the asset?" Han Bin asked. Jeho nodded once, sharply. "Follow me." The 2 officials descended deeper into the facility, passing through 7 security checkpoints. At each, their retinas, DNA, and thought patterns were scanned and verified. No technology in known space could bypass these measures. They reached a circular chamber with a single stasis pod in its center. The pod was ancient technology, built by a species long extinct. Only 6 such devices remained in the galaxy. "Authorization. Jeho, Director Level Omega," he said clearly. "Release Protocol. 7-7 Apex." The stasis field shimmered and began to fade. Inside, a humanoid figure became visible through the mist. "You understand what this means?" Jeho asked Han Bin quietly. "We are activating Tech-Su. The Council must truly fear these humans." The pod opened completely, and a lean figure sat up. Tech-Su appeared almost human himself, though his skin held a slight bluish tint and his eyes were pure silver, without pupils or irises. He was the most effective containment operative in Council history, with 23 successful missions across 2,000 cycles. Tech-Su's silver eyes swept the room, noting every detail. "I have been awakened," he stated. It wasn't a question. "Protocol 7 has been authorized for species 7294, Jeho said formally. "Designation: human. Origin: Sol system, 3rd planet." Tech-Su stood from the pod with fluid grace. Despite being in stasis for nearly 300 cycles, he moved as if he had been awake moments ago. "Show me," he said simply. Han Bin activated the central display. Images of Earth appeared, its cities, technology, military capabilities, and most importantly, its people. Tech-Su studied each image carefully, his expression unchanging. "Interesting," he finally said. "They appear physically unimpressive. Do not underestimate them," warned Jeho. "They have developed faster-than-light principles, 60 cycles ahead of our most advanced projections. Their minds work differently. They make connections no other species would consider." Tech-Su absorbed this information without comment. "Containment parameters. Full limitation of expansion beyond their home system," Jeho replied. Prevent FTL development at any cost. The Council prefers minimal population reduction if possible, but authorizes whatever measures you deem necessary. Teksu nodded once. Preparation time. 1 standard cycle. You depart for the Sol system immediately after. The assassin closed his silver eyes briefly, then opened them. I require all intelligence on human defense systems, communication protocols, and social structures. Hanbin handed over a data crystal. Everything we have is here. Teksu took the crystal and inserted it into the port at the base of his skull. Technology as ancient as his stasis pod. His eyes flickered as he processed the information. I have never failed a containment mission, Teksu stated. I will not fail this one. As Hanbin watched the legendary operative begin his preparation rituals, he wondered if even Teksu understood what they were truly facing. Something about these humans disturbed the Council deeply, more than they were willing to admit, even to their most trusted asset. Lieutenant Su-Jin rubbed her tired eyes as the strange signals appeared on her monitor again. For 3 nights straight, the Europa Deep Space Monitoring Station had picked up unusual energy patterns from Jupiter's icy moon. At first, she thought it was just interference from the recent solar flares. Now she wasn't so sure. This can't be right, she muttered, adjusting the frequency filters. The patterns didn't match any known human transmission protocols. More concerning, they seemed to be responding to Earth's own deep space communications in real time. Su-Jin's hands hovered over her keyboard. As the night shift supervisor for Earth's outer system monitoring network, she had clear protocols for unusual signals. But something about these made her hesitate. They were too precise, too structured to be natural phenomena. She reached for her communicator. Director Park, you need to see this. Park Daewon arrived 15 minutes later, his normally neat uniform wrinkled from sleep. He'd been with the United Defense Initiative since its formation 3 years ago, after the nations of Earth finally united their space programs in response to the discovery of the Titan microbes. Show me, he said, skipping any greeting. Su-Jin pulled up the recorded patterns. These signals started 3 days ago. They're coming from Europa's southern ice shelf, but they don't match any of our research outposts. Park leaned closer to the screen, his expression darkening. And they're responding to our communications. Yes, sir. Every time we send a data packet to the Mars colony, these signals change their pattern. It's like something is listening. Park was silent for a long moment. Then he straightened up and pulled out his secure phone. This is Director Park. Authorization code Tango Echo 79. I need an emergency meeting with the Defense Council. Now. Within 3 hours, the UDI's Special Response Team was activated. Captain Kim Tae-ho, who had led the first manned mission to Europa just 2 years before, was called from his home in the middle of the night. An unknown signal source. Kim asked as he was briefed in the secure conference room. Are we sure it's not the Russians or Chinese? Both have unauthorized research projects in the outer system. We've confirmed with all Earth governments, Park replied. Whatever this is, it's not one of ours. By dawn, Kim's team was assembled. They would take the UDI's fastest ship, the Pathfinder, to investigate the source. The team included Minho for security, Nae-young for communications, and Dr. Kang for scientific analysis. This is strictly observation, Park emphasized during the final briefing. Do not engage if you find anything. Your mission is to identify and report back. Nothing more. 20 hours later, the Pathfinder left Earth orbit, its nuclear ion engines pushing it toward Jupiter at record speed. The 5-day journey gave the team time to prepare their equipment and review the increasingly strange signal data that Su-Jin continued to send. These patterns are becoming more complex, Nae-young noted on the 3rd day, studying her screen intently. It's almost like they're evolving. Or whoever is sending them is learning more about us, Kim replied quietly. As they entered Jupiter's orbit, the massive gas giant filled their viewports. Europa came into view, its ice-covered surface reflecting the distant sun like a perfect white pearl. Beginning orbital approach, announced Minho from the pilot's seat. "We'll reach the signal source in 30 minutes. Na-young suddenly sat up straight at her console. "Captain, I'm receiving something new. A direct transmission." The ship's speakers crackled with sounds that made no sense to human ears. Clicks, whistles, and deep resonant tones that seemed to vibrate through the metal walls of the ship. "Can you decode it?" Kim asked, moving to her station. "It's not using any Earth encryption or language patterns," Na-young replied, her fingers flying over her keyboard. "But it's definitely a message. The structure is too regular for random noise. It's responding to our presence," Dr. Kang said slowly. "It knows we're here." The Pathfinder settled into a low orbit over Europa's southern hemisphere. Below them, the vast ice plains stretched in all directions, broken only by cracks and ridges in the frozen surface. "The signal is coming from those coordinates," Na-young said, pointing to a map display. "There's a large crevasse in the ice there." Kim stared at the image, his mind racing with possibilities. After years of searching for signs of alien life in the solar system, could they have finally found it? Or was this something else, something potentially dangerous? "Prepare the drone," he ordered. "We'll send it down for a closer look." As Minho readied the small exploration drone, Na-young suddenly gasped. "Captain, look at this." On her screen, new signal patterns were forming, patterns that eerily resembled the very communication protocols Earth used for its deep space network. "It's not just listening to us," she whispered. "It's learning from us." The alarms at the Seoul FTL Research Center blared at 2:17 a.m., their harsh sound breaking the quiet of the night shift. Lee Sun-mei looked up from her workstation, where she had been running simulations on the prototype quantum drive. As the lead physicist on the project, she often worked late when the lab was empty and quiet. Tonight was different. The security monitor suddenly flashed red, and Sun-mei watched in shock as the feed from Laboratory 6 showed movement. Something was inside the secure area where the physical prototype was housed. "Security breach in Lab 6, announced the automated system. All personnel evacuate to safety zones." Sun-mei ignored the evacuation order. Her life's work was in that lab. Instead of heading to the exits, she pulled up the security camera feeds on her tablet. What she saw made her blood run cold. A figure moved through the lab, but not like any human she had ever seen. It flowed like water, moving faster than seemed possible. The cameras could barely track it. One moment it was at the entrance, the next it was already at the central testing chamber. The figure was humanoid but clearly not human, with light blue skin and eyes that seemed to glow silver in the camera feed. "No," Sun-mei whispered, watching helplessly as the intruder placed small devices on the prototype drive. She recognized the quantum components. The intruder was targeting the exact parts that made the drive work. She grabbed her phone and called the emergency line. "This is Dr. Lee. Someone is sabotaging the prototype. They're in Lab 6 right now." Security guards rushed toward the lab, but Sun-mei knew they wouldn't be fast enough. The intruder had already damaged 3 key components. Then something unexpected happened. The main doors to the facility burst open. Captain Kim Tae-ho led a team of 4 people into the building, all wearing the dark uniforms of the Defense Initiative. They moved with purpose, as if they had been expecting this attack. How did they know? Sun-mei wondered, watching as Kim's team headed directly toward Lab 6, bypassing the regular security forces. Inside the lab, the intruder had just finished placing a final device on the drive when the doors slid open. Kim and his team entered, weapons raised. "Stop right there," Kim shouted. The intruder turned, revealing a face that was almost human but not quite. Its silver eyes narrowed. "Your species is not ready," it said in perfect Korean, though the voice had a strange metallic quality. Officer Jun-woo moved forward, his weapon aimed at the intruder. "Step away from the drive." The intruder moved with blinding speed, lunging toward Jun-woo. But the officer had been preparing for this moment since their return from Europa 3 days ago. He fired his weapon. Not a standard gun, but something the team had developed based on the signal patterns they had detected. A pulse of blue energy hit the intruder in the shoulder. It stumbled for the first time, clearly surprised. A silver liquid that might have been blood seeped from the wound. The intruder looked at its injury with what appeared to be shock, then at the humans with new respect. "Impossible," it said. Then it threw something toward the team, a small sphere that erupted in blinding light. When the team could see again, the intruder was gone, but it had left behind one of its devices, still attached to the drive. Junwoo approached it carefully. "Don't touch it," warned communications specialist Nayoung. "We don't know what it does." "We need to secure the area," Kim ordered. "Minho, get Dr. Lee in here. She needs to assess the damage." Sunlight was already at the door, having run down from her office. She pushed past security and entered the lab, immediately going to her precious prototype. 3 quantum nodes are damaged, she reported after a quick examination. But the core is intact. She pointed to the device the intruder had left behind. "What is that?" Nayoung approached with a scanner she had brought from their ship. "It's giving off energy patterns similar to the signals we detected on Europa." "Can you remove it safely?" Kim asked. "I think so," Sunmai replied. "But I want to study it first. It might tell us what they were trying to do." 2 hours later, the device had been carefully removed and placed in a secure container. The research team and Kim's defense unit gathered in the conference room. "The device was designed to disrupt our quantum folding principles," Sunmai explained. "It would have made stable FTL travel impossible." Nayoung had been analyzing data recovered from the device. Her face was pale as she looked up from her tablet. "I've managed to decode some of the embedded programming," she said. "There's a phrase that keeps appearing." She took a deep breath. "They call it the containment protocol." "Containment?" Kim asked. "Based on the context, it's not about containing the technology," Nayoung explained. "It's about containing us, humanity. There are references to other species that were contained. None of them exist anymore." A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications became clear. "They intend to eliminate us entirely," Nayoung said finally. "And based on the data, this was just the first step." Sunle looked at the damaged prototype, then at Kim. "How did you know the attack was coming?" Kim shared a look with his team before answering. "Because we met something on Europa. Something that wasn't human. And it was sending messages about Earth." "What do we do now?" asked Junwoo, his arm bandaged where the intruder had struck him during their brief fight. "We prepare," Kim said firmly. "And we finish the drive. It's our only chance." Engineer Hyun-sik stepped back from the modified prototype and wiped grease from his hands. For 3 weeks, he had barely slept, working alongside Dr. Lee Sunmi to incorporate the alien technology recovered from the attack. The research center had been transformed into a fortress, with Defense Initiative personnel guarding every entrance. "It's ready," Hyun-sik announced to the waiting group. "The prototype can fly." Captain Kim approached the vessel, which no longer resembled its original design. The sleek quantum drive now had strange blue-silver components integrated throughout its systems. The ship itself was smaller than traditional space vessels, designed for speed rather than comfort. "You're certain it will work?" Kim asked, running his hand along the hull. "As certain as I can be," Hyun-sik replied. "We've incorporated their quantum folding technology into our design. In theory, it should allow us to travel faster than light." "In theory," repeated Junwoo, the combat specialist whose shoulder still ached from the wound he'd received fighting the alien intruder. "It's our only option," Kim said firmly. "If we don't take the fight to them, they'll return with more than one assassin next time." The Defense Council had debated for days before approving this mission. Captain Kim had been given authority to take a small team back to Europa, where they believed the alien had established a base. Their orders were to gather intelligence and, if possible, neutralize the threat. "The ship is designed for 5 people," Hyun-sik explained. I've installed defensive systems based on what we learned from the alien device. Kim nodded. My team is ready. He had selected them carefully. Su Jin for intelligence analysis, Ne Young for communications and alien language interpretation, Jun Woo for combat expertise, and himself as mission commander. The fifth seat would be filled by Hyun-sik, who knew the ship's systems better than anyone. 2 days later, they launched under cover of darkness. The ship, now named Vanguard, rose silently into the night sky, its engines barely visible even to tracking stations. As they left Earth's atmosphere, Hyun-sik activated the new drive. Quantum folding sequence initiated, he announced. Everyone hold on. The stars outside the viewport seemed to stretch, then snap back like rubber bands. A strange humming filled the ship, not quite sound but something felt in their bones. Then suddenly, Jupiter filled their view. It worked, Su Jin whispered, checking her instruments. The journey took less than 10 minutes. The alien made this trip regularly, Kim reminded them. Now we know how. They approached Europa carefully, using passive sensors to scan the moon. Su Jin directed them to the southern ice shelf, where they had detected the strange signals weeks before. There's a large crevasse that matches our previous coordinates, she reported. I'm detecting energy readings similar to the device from the research center. Kim guided the Vanguard down to the icy surface. Unlike their previous visit, they now had a ship capable of landing. They touched down half a kilometer from the crevasse and prepared for the surface expedition. Everyone check your suits and weapons, Kim ordered. We don't know what we'll find down there. The 5 team members exited the ship onto Europa's frozen surface. Jupiter hung enormous in the black sky, its swirling storms visible even from this distance. They moved quietly toward the crevasse, their footsteps crunching on the ice. The crack in the ice was nearly 20 meters wide, descending into darkness. Su Jin's instruments indicated the energy source was approximately 100 meters below the surface. There appears to be a network of ice caves, she said quietly. The signal is coming from deep inside. They used specialized climbing equipment to descend into the crevasse. The walls of ice around them glowed faintly blue from Jupiter's reflected light. As they went deeper, they began to notice strange markings on the ice walls, symbols that resembled those found on the alien device. These weren't made by natural processes, Ne Young observed, scanning the symbols with her device. They contained data, like a sign or marker. At the bottom of the crevasse, they discovered a narrow tunnel that had clearly been melted through the ice with advanced technology. The tunnel led to a larger chamber, and there they found what they were looking for. The alien outpost was built directly into the ice. Strange equipment lined the walls, pulsing with soft light. At the center was a communication array similar to human designs, but far more advanced. Stay alert, Kim warned. The alien could return at any moment. They spread out, examining the outpost. Jun Woo secured the perimeter while Ne Young went straight to what appeared to be a control console. This interface is similar to the device we studied, she said, carefully touching the smooth surface. I think I can access it. Su Jin joined her, connecting her data tablet to the alien system. Strange symbols flowed across her screen, gradually being translated by the algorithms she had developed based on the recovered device. This is incredible, Su Jin whispered as the data streamed in. Star charts, communication protocols, and, she paused, her eyes widening, coordinates to their homeworld, their outposts, their entire network. She looked up at Captain Kim, her face reflecting the blue light of the alien technology. This changes everything. We know where to find them now. Kim nodded grimly. Download everything. We need to get this back to Earth immediately. As Su Jin worked, Kim examined a 3-dimensional map that had appeared above one console. It showed not just the solar system, but hundreds of stars beyond, with lines connecting various points. One location was marked differently than the others, a central hub of some kind. Is that their headquarters? He asked Ne Young, who was working on translations. I believe so, she replied. And based on these communications logs, that's where the order to eliminate us came from. Kim studied the map carefully, memorizing the location. For the first time since learning of the alien threat, he felt a spark of hope. Humanity was no longer fighting blindly against an unknown enemy. Now they had a target. Teksu prepared his final defense system in the hidden base beneath Saturn's moon Enceladus. After the humans had discovered his Europa outpost, he had barely escaped through his emergency quantum portal. The Council would be displeased with his failure, but he had a contingency plan. From this secondary position, he could still monitor Earth's activities and prepare for a more comprehensive attack. The base was smaller than his Europa facility, but better hidden within the icy geysers that erupted from Enceladus' surface. The natural water plumes provided excellent cover for his transmissions back to Council space. He had just finished sending his latest report when the proximity alert sounded. Impossible, he thought, checking the readings. No human vessel could have tracked him here. Their technology was advanced, but not that advanced. Yet the sensors showed a ship approaching, using a quantum signature that matched his own technology. Teksu's silver eyes narrowed. Somehow, they had reverse-engineered his systems far more quickly than any species should have been able to. In his 2,000 cycles as a containment operative, he had never seen such rapid adaptation. He activated his defensive measures and prepared for battle. Unlike on Earth, he would not underestimate these humans again. The hull breach came from an unexpected direction. Teksu had anticipated they would attempt to enter through the main chamber. Instead, a concentrated energy pulse cut through the ice wall behind his command center. Before he could react, 5 humans in sealed suits entered, weapons raised. "Don't move," said the leader, whom Teksu recognized as the same human who had led the Europa expedition. "Your quantum communications have been blocked." Teksu assessed his options. The humans had surrounded him with weapons he had never seen before, devices that appeared to incorporate his own technology, but modified in ways he didn't understand. "How did you find me?" he asked, his translator converting his natural language into Korean. "You're not the only one who can analyze quantum signatures," replied a female human, the communications specialist who had been at the research facility. Teksu moved with blinding speed, activating his personal shield and reaching for his weapon. The humans reacted faster than he expected. 3 energy pulses hit his shield simultaneously, overloading it with a harmonic frequency he had never encountered. Officer Junwoo moved in to subdue the assassin, but Teksu struck with deadly precision. His hand connected with Junwoo's chest, sending the human flying backward into the ice wall. The combat specialist collapsed, a serious wound visible through his torn suit. "Junwoo," shouted Captain Kim, firing again. This time, the shot connected. Teksu felt a strange numbness spread from his shoulder down his arm. The humans had developed a weapon that specifically targeted his nervous system. The battle that followed was brief but fierce. Teksu managed to disable one of their weapons and injure another team member, but he was outnumbered and facing technology that had been specifically designed to counter his abilities. A final shot from Kim's weapon brought him to his knees. "Secure him," Kim ordered as Sujin rushed to help the injured Junwoo. Hyun-sik approached with restraints made from a material Teksu didn't recognize. These should hold him. They're designed to adapt to his strength. Teksu felt something he had not experienced in over 1,000 cycles. Defeat. The Council had been wrong about these humans. They were far more dangerous than anyone had realized. Back on the Vanguard, Junwoo was stabilized in the medical bay while Teksu was secured in a specially designed containment chamber. Naeum began the process of communication, using the language algorithms she had developed from the Europa outpost data. For 3 days, she spent hours talking with the captive assassin. At first, Teksu refused to engage, but Naeung's persistent questions and her surprising knowledge of Council communication protocols eventually broke through his resistance. On the 4th day, Naeung called the team together outside the containment chamber. "I've learned something important," she said, her voice low but excited. "The Council fears us not because of our technology, but because of our minds." "Explain," Kim requested. "According to Tech-Su, humans make cognitive leaps that no other species can understand. Where other species follow logical, predictable development paths, humans make connections that seem random but lead to incredible innovations. That's why they wanted to stop our FTL research," Hyun-Sik realized. "Not just because we were developing it too quickly, but because we were developing it differently." "Exactly," Na-young confirmed. "The Council operates on consensus and predictability. Our unpredictability terrifies them because they can't control what they can't predict." Captain Kim considered this information carefully. "So it's not just our technology they fear, but our way of thinking." "That's right," Na-young said. "Tech-Su says the Council has classified only 5 species as cognitively dangerous in their entire history. 3 were contained, eliminated. We're the 4th. "And the 5th?" Su-jin asked. "A species called the Varian. They've been isolated behind a quantum barrier for 10,000 cycles." Kim walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. After a moment of silence, he turned back to his team. "Then we use that to our advantage," he said, a plan already forming in his mind. "If our unpredictability is what they fear, we'll give them something truly unpredictable." He approached the containment chamber where Tech-Su watched them with his unblinking silver eyes. "Tell me about the Council's central hub," Kim said. "We're going to pay them a visit." For the first time since his capture, Tech-Su's expression changed. If Kim didn't know better, he would have thought he saw respect in those alien eyes. Tech-Su's ship hummed with unfamiliar energy as it approached the massive structure floating in deep space. Outpost 7 was one of the Galactic Council's major communication hubs, connecting over 50 star systems through quantum relay networks. The sleek vessel, now piloted by humans, transmitted the proper identification codes as it neared the docking bay. Inside the ship, Captain Kim adjusted his appearance one final time. The biological camouflage that Hyun-Sik had developed using Tech-Su's DNA samples wasn't perfect, but it gave Kim the blue-tinted skin and silver-eyed appearance of the assassin species. The rest of the team remained hidden in the ship's cargo hold. "Remember the plan," Kim said into his communicator. "I get us inside, secure the main access point, then bring you in as prisoners. We'll have 20 minutes at most before the identity codes fail. The ship is programmed to leave automatically if we don't return in 40 minutes, Su-jin reminded him. "With or without us?" Kim nodded, though they couldn't see him. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic thud, and the airlock cycle began. He took a deep breath, thinking of the real Tech-Su, now sedated in a secure facility back on Earth. Everything they had learned from the assassin would be put to the test in the next few minutes. The airlock opened to reveal 2 tall, multi-limbed beings that Tech-Su had identified as Dren, a species that commonly worked security for the Council. Kim stepped forward with the confident stride that Na-young had helped him practice. "Operative Tech-Su," one of the Dren said, its translator converting the clicks and whistles of its natural language. "Your return was not scheduled. The human situation required immediate reporting," Kim replied in Tech-Su's measured tone. "I have captured specimens and data for the Council's evaluation." The Dren examined him for a moment. Kim forced himself to remain calm, knowing that any sign of stress would give him away. Finally, the security officer nodded. "Proceed to Security Checkpoint 3 for verification." Kim followed instructions, walking through the massive docking bay where dozens of ships from various Council species were moored. The outpost was even larger than Tech-Su had described, with soaring ceilings and strange architecture that seemed to defy gravity. At the security checkpoint, Kim submitted to a series of scans. The biological camouflage held, and his forged credentials passed initial inspection. 28 minutes until the identity codes would fail, according to Su-jin's calculations. "I require a holding cell for my prisoners," Kim told the security officer, "and direct access to the communications array." Prisoners must be processed through quarantine, the officer replied. These humans are dangerous, Kim said firmly. The Council's containment directive requires immediate isolation and reporting. Check Protocol 794. The security officer hesitated, then checked its terminal. Tech-Su had told them about this override procedure, used only for the most dangerous captives. After a moment, the officer nodded. You may proceed to holding Block 5. An escort will take you to the communications array afterward. Kim returned to the ship and activated the cargo hold. The rest of the team emerged, wearing restraints that looked secure but could be removed in seconds. Nae-young, Soo-jin, and Hyun-sik kept their heads down as Kim led them through the checkpoint, playing the role of defeated prisoners. Instead of heading to the holding block, Kim took a service corridor that Tech-Su had described. They removed their restraints as soon as they were out of sight of security cameras. 17 minutes, Soo-jin warned, checking her device. They moved quickly through the maintenance tunnels until they reached a secondary access point to the communications center. Hyun-sik used the tools they had brought to bypass the security panel, and the door slid open. The communications array was enormous, with dozens of terminals connecting to different sectors of Council space. Fortunately, only 2 operators were present, and they looked up in surprise as the humans entered. Security breach in communications, one of them shouted, reaching for an alarm. Kim moved faster, using the stunner they had developed based on Tech-Su's weapon. Both operators collapsed before they could sound the alarm. 12 minutes, Soo-jin announced, taking position by the door. Nae-young and Hyun-sik went straight to the main console. They had practiced this part extensively using simulations based on the data from Tech-Su's outposts. Nae-young's fingers flew over the alien interface, while Hyun-sik connected their data storage device. I'm in, Nae-young said after 2 tense minutes. Uploading the package now. The package contained everything they had discovered. Records of the Council's illegal containment protocol, evidence of species that had been wrongfully eliminated, and Tech-Su's own testimony about his missions. Most importantly, it included data showing which species were on the Council's watch list for future containment. 8 minutes, Soo-jin warned. Upload complete, Nae-young reported. Initiating broadcast. On the main screen, their message began transmitting to every Council world and outpost simultaneously. The broadcast was designed to bypass the normal censorship protocols by using the emergency alert system. Alarms at the security checkpoint, Soo-jin called out. They've realized the codes are fake. We're done here, Kim decided. Back to the ship now. They rushed back through the maintenance tunnels as alarms began blaring throughout the outpost. Security forces would be converging on the communications array, but by the time they discovered what had happened, the broadcast would be complete. As they approached the docking bay, they encountered a group of Dren security officers. A brief firefight erupted, with the humans using their modified weapons to disable rather than kill. Hyun-sik took a glancing blow to his arm, but managed to keep moving. They reached Tech-Su's ship just as security lockdown protocols began closing the docking bay doors. Soo-jin jumped into the pilot's seat and activated the launch sequence while the others secured themselves. Hold on, she shouted as the ship broke free from the docking clamps and accelerated toward the narrowing gap of the bay doors. The ship scraped against the closing doors, but made it through into open space. Behind them, Outpost 7 erupted in chaos as their broadcast reached every corner of the massive structure. On the ship's rear viewers, they could see vessels of various species breaking away from the outpost in haste. It worked, Nae-young said in amazement. Look at them. They're running from each other. The broadcast had revealed that several species currently represented on the Council were themselves on the containment watch list. Decades of trust had been shattered in minutes. Quantum fold drive ready, Soo-jin announced, setting course for Earth. As the stars stretched and warped around them, Kim allowed himself a small smile. The Council wanted to contain humanity because they couldn't predict us. I don't think they predicted this. Behind them, The political structure that had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 cycles began to crumble. The newly constructed Alliance Hall gleamed in the morning sunlight, its architecture combining elements from 15 different worlds. 6 months had passed since the human team's daring mission to Outpost 7, and Earth had changed dramatically in that time. The first alien ships had arrived just 3 weeks after the broadcast, not as invaders, but as refugees seeking alliance against the fracturing Council. Today marked the official founding of the Alliance of Independent Species, a new interstellar organization built on principles of cooperation rather than control. Delegates from 14 former Council worlds had gathered in Seoul for the historic ceremony. Captain Kim adjusted his formal uniform as he watched the delegates arrive. Each species was strikingly different, some with multiple limbs, others with exoskeletons, and one that appeared to be made of living crystal. Yet they all shared one common trait. They had been deemed potentially dangerous by the Galactic Council's secret containment lists. Captain Kim called a familiar voice. Na-young approached, now wearing the insignia of Earth's diplomatic corps. Her experience communicating with Tech-Soo had made her invaluable in the negotiations that followed first contact. "The ceremony begins in 10 minutes, she said. Ambassador Minho asked if you would join him on the platform. Kim nodded. "I'll be there. How is Junwoo?" "Fully recovered and leading security for the event." Na-young replied with a smile. "The medical techniques we learned from the Trill delegation healed his wounds completely." They walked together through the Grand Hall, passing delegates engaged in animated discussions. Human translators worked alongside alien communication specialists, bridging the gaps between vastly different languages and thought patterns. "I still can't believe how quickly everything changed," Na-young said quietly. 6 months ago, we didn't even know intelligent life existed beyond Earth. And they were planning to wipe us out," Kim added. "Now look at us." The main chamber of the Alliance Hall could seat representatives from 50 different species, though currently only 15 were occupied. At the center stood a circular platform where the founding document would be signed. Ambassador Minho, formerly South Korea's foreign minister and now Earth's representative to the Alliance, greeted Kim warmly. "The man of the hour," Minho said, clasping Kim's hand. "Without your team's courage, none of this would exist." "We just did what humans do best," Kim replied. "Adapt and surprise." The ceremony began with each delegation presenting their credentials. The Vrian, released from their quantum barrier after 10,000 cycles of isolation, were particularly emotional in their address. Their tall, slender forms moved with grace as they thanked humanity for ending their imprisonment. When all delegations had been recognized, Ambassador Minho stepped forward to deliver Earth's address. "Today marks a new beginning for all our worlds," he began. "The old council sought to contain what it feared. They saw our differences as threats to be eliminated. We choose a different path." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber as translation devices conveyed his words to each species. "Humanity's perspective has proven invaluable in crafting this alliance," Minho continued. "What the Council feared as dangerous, we recognize as innovative. Our differences do not divide us. They make us stronger together." The delegates rose in a standing ovation. The founding document was brought forward, and one by one, representatives from each world added their signatures or equivalent marks of approval. In a secured observation room above the main chamber, Tech-Soo watched the proceedings on a large screen. The former assassin was no longer a prisoner but wasn't fully trusted either. His knowledge of Council operations had proven essential in the preceding months, earning him a conditional status somewhere between consultant and supervised asset. Captain Kim entered the room and stood beside him. They watched in silence as the ceremony continued below. "You have achieved something remarkable," Tech-Soo finally said, his silver eyes reflecting the screen's light. "In 2,000 cycles of service, I never witnessed anything like this." "We couldn't have done it without you," Kim acknowledged. "Your information made all of this possible." Tech-Soo turned to face him. "Do not become complacent, Captain. The council may have fractured, but it has not disappeared. There are still many who would see Earth fall, and this alliance with it. The Hardliners, Kim nodded. We've been monitoring their communications. They will not announce their coming. Tech-Su warned. They will strike without warning, as I once did. Kim's expression hardened. Let them try. This time, we'll be ready. On the screen, the signing ceremony concluded with thunderous applause. Representatives embraced across species barriers that would have been unthinkable months before. What happens to me now? Tech-Su asked quietly. I am neither prisoner nor ally. Kim considered the question. That depends on you. You've helped us understand the galaxy we're now part of. You could continue to do so, as a true ally rather than a reluctant informant. You would trust me, after what I came to do. Trust is earned, Kim replied. You've started to earn it. The question is whether you want to continue. Tech-Su was silent for a long moment. The council trained me for 2,000 cycles to be their perfect weapon. I know no other purpose. Then find a new one, Kim suggested. Help us build something better than what they created. Below them, the delegates were moving to the Great Hall for the celebration that would follow the ceremony. Earth's first faster-than-light vessel, now properly completed, would depart the next day for a goodwill tour of Alliance worlds. There are many paths before us now, Kim said, looking out at the gathering of species. For all of us. Tech-Su's silver eyes studied the human carefully. Then, for the first time in their long association, the assassin's lips curved in what might have been a smile. Perhaps, he said, it is time I learned to build rather than destroy. As they watched the diverse species mingling below, the former enemies stood side by side, witnesses to the beginning of a new order in the galaxy, one where differences were celebrated rather than contained, and where humanity's unpredictable nature might just be the greatest asset of all.